When Sarah and her family moved into the house on Millbrook Lane, the real estate agent mentioned it had been empty for 11 years. She didn't ask why. Looking back, she should have asked a lot of things. The house was beautiful in a way that felt almost too deliberate, like it had been waiting for exactly the right family to walk through its door. The floors creaked in patterns that almost sounded like footsteps, even when no one was walking through the rooms above. Her husband David laughed it off as typical old house charm. Their son Ethan, 7 years old and quiet by nature, simply stood in the front hallway for a long moment before saying he didn't like how the house was looking at them. Sarah told him houses don't look at people. He didn't seem convinced. The first night, Ethan said he heard someone humming in the hallway outside his room. Sarah checked. No one was there. She told herself it was the pipes settling, the way old houses do when they're getting used to being lived in again after so long alone. On the second day, they found a room upstairs that hadn't appeared on the floor plan the agent had given them. It was small, windowless, and completely empty except for a child's rocking chair, positioned facing the wall instead of the room. In the days that followed, small things kept happening. A door they were certain they'd closed would be open in the morning. A photo they'd hung the day before would be found face down on the floor, as if something in the house didn't want to be looked at or didn't want to look back. Sarah found a journal hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the small room with the rocking chair. The handwriting was careful, almost childlike, spanning what looked like months of entries. The final entry, dated 11 years earlier, simply read, "They don't let you leave once you remember them." That night, Ethan swore the rocking chair had moved from the small room into his bedroom while he slept, though no one had touched it. Sarah checked. It was exactly where it had always been, but the layer of dust around its base had clearly shifted, as if something had recently gotten up and walked away. The neighbors were polite but distant, the particular kind of distant people get when they know something they'd rather not explain to newcomers. One elderly woman, watering flowers in her front garden, said only this: "The house remembers every family that's lived there. It doesn't like being forgotten once you leave." Sarah began noticing a shape in the reflection of the windows at night, always just at the edge of where she happened to be looking, gone completely the moment she turned to look at it directly. David saw it too, though neither of them said so out loud for almost a week. Sarah eventually went to the town archive and found old newspaper clippings mentioning the house on Millbrook Lane. 3 separate families had lived there before hers, going back decades. Each one had left suddenly, always within the same year of moving in, always sometime in autumn, always without any public explanation given. Ethan started drawing the same picture over and over on scraps of paper around the house. A family standing outside, and a smaller figure watching them from an upstairs window that, in every drawing, was unmistakably the window of that small, empty room upstairs. At dinner one evening, David finally admitted he'd been hearing the humming too, always from empty rooms, always stopping the instant he stepped inside to check. They agreed, quietly, not to mention it in front of Ethan, though it was clear he already knew. One night, Sarah woke to find the front door standing wide open, cold air pouring into the hallway, though she was completely certain she'd locked it before bed. Sitting on the doormat outside, facing the house, was the rocking chair. A storm rolled in that same week, rattling the windows and knocking out the power for hours. In the darkness, Sarah heard the humming again, closer than it had ever been, drifting down the stairs toward where her family sat huddled together in the living room. Sarah decided to confront the house the only way she knew how. She climbed the stairs alone, sat in that small room in the rocking chair, and said aloud that she remembered. She acknowledged, one by one, every family the newspaper clippings had named. The house went completely, suddenly silent. Not the ordinary silence of nothing happening, but the specific, heavy silence of something finally being heard after a very long stretch of being ignored, or forgotten, or both at once. The next morning, sunlight came through the windows in a way it hadn't since they'd moved in, warm and ordinary, like any house on any street. Ethan came downstairs and said simply that the house felt different now, lighter somehow, like it had finally stopped holding its breath. Sarah went back up to the small room in the daylight. The rocking chair was still there, facing the wall as it always had. But for the first time, it felt like an old piece of furniture rather than something watching her. She left it exactly where it was. Weeks passed, then a month, and the household settled into something that finally resembled ordinary life. David stopped listening for humming in empty rooms. Ethan's drawings changed too, filled now with ordinary things. Their dog, the backyard, stick-figure versions of the three of them smiling outside a house that no longer looked quite so unfriendly. The elderly neighbor stopped Sarah again one afternoon while she was checking the mail. She studied Sarah's face for a moment, then simply nodded and said, "You did what the others never did. You stayed long enough to listen. That's usually enough for it." In the weeks that followed, the strange occurrences slowly, quietly stopped. The floors still creaked, but only in the way old houses always do. Whether the house was simply satisfied at last, or whether it was still watching and patiently waiting, Sarah never fully knew and never fully stopped wondering. The house on Millbrook Lane still stands today, as patient as ever, waiting to see how long this particular family stays, and whether they'll finally be the ones who remember it back before it's their turn to be remembered too. Follow for more stories that stay with you long after the lights go out.